My name is Z, and once I was the richest man in my city. The streets carried my name. The skyline was my shadow. The world looked up and saw me, but it did not begin that way. I was born into hunger, into silence, into dust. I remember nights when the wind slipped through broken windows and cut into my bones. I remember the floor, so cold it burned my skin. I remember the ache in my stomach, the shame of torn shoes, the way my mother's eyes carried apologies she could never speak aloud. I was invisible, a shadow moving among men. And yet in that emptiness, I made a vow. I told myself, Z, you will not die poor. You will not die forgotten. You will build something so large that even the wind will whisper your name. So I began, small, invisible, carrying crates heavier than my body, cleaning floors where no one cared to know my name, working jobs that ate away at my hands, but not my spirit. Every coin I saved was a seed. Every risk I took was a stone. Every humiliation I endured was a step forward. I built slowly, painfully, but always forward. One shop became two. Two became five. Five became districts. And then, before I could even breathe, I looked down from rooftops and saw the city bow its head to me. The newspapers called me the lion of the city. They said I had conquered fate. And for a time, I believed them. But towers, wealth, power, they were not my true pride. My true pride was my son, David. When he was born, I thought the world had finally given me something purer, something untouched by hunger, by pain, by humiliation. I held him in my arms, and I swore, you will never feel what I felt. You will never taste the hunger that gnawed at me. You will never sleep on cold floors. You will never be invisible. I built palaces for him. I filled his world with toys from across the earth, cars before he could drive, jewels before he knew their names, clothes stitched by the finest hands before he could even speak. And every time I looked at him, I told myself, this is my legacy, my blood, my heir. Everything I build for David. When I walked the streets, men bowed. When I entered rooms, silence followed. But when I returned home and David ran into my arms, smiling like the world itself had no weight, that was when I truly felt like a king. I dreamed of the day he would sit at my desk, the day he would hold the reins of the empire, the day he would carry my name further than I could. I thought I had secured more than wealth. I thought I had secured immortality. But time is a cruel teacher. And love, when blinded by pride, can become the sharpest blade against you. Because the boy I raised, the boy I gave the world to, would one day sell it all away. David was not born into hunger. He was born into silk, into marble floors and golden ceilings, into the comfort of knowing the world would bow before him, not because of who he was, but because of me. At first, I believed this was victory. What greater triumph could father ask for than to raise his son free from the wounds that shaped him? I thought I had broken the curse of poverty. I thought I had rewritten fate. But wounds make men strong. Comfort makes them weak. When David was young, he followed me everywhere. He sat in my office as I signed papers. He watched men twice my age bow their heads to me. I told myself he was learning, absorbing, preparing for the day he would carry the weight. But as he grew older, I began to see the fire that burned in me did not live in him. David liked the shine, but not the struggle. He liked the crown, but not the weight. He liked being called Z's son, but he never wanted to become Z. Still, I ignored it. I told myself he was young. That time would shape him. That blood remembers. I gave him responsibilities, a company under his name, a tower to manage, a chance to prove himself. But instead of leading, he drifted. He filled nights with parties that lasted until dawn. He surrounded himself with friends who smelled of greed, shadows who whispered into his ears, promising him shortcuts, promising him freedom from the shadow of my name. And I heard the whispers too. But I was blind because I loved him, blind because I believed no son could betray the hand that built his world. Then came the day my empire ended. I had been away securing a deal overseas. When I returned, the halls of my company were different. The men who once bowed their heads avoided my eyes. The silence was heavy. I knew something was wrong. And then I saw the papers. Signed, sealed, final. My empire, my streets, my towers, the lifeblood of my city, sold. Not by strangers, not by enemies, but by David, my own son. He sold it all, for money that vanished like smoke, for friends who disappeared the moment the ink dried, for promises of freedom from me. I confronted him. I still see his face when I close my eyes. Calm, cold, almost proud. He looked at me and said, "Father, I don't want to live in your empire. I want my own life, my own name. I won't live forever under you." Those words cut deeper than any blade, because they were not spoken by a stranger. They were spoken by the boy I once held in my arms, the boy I swore I would protect, the boy I thought would carry my name into eternity. And in that moment, I realized the truth. I had given him everything, and in return, he had given me nothing. The empire I built brick by brick, the empire I carved from hunger and pain, was gone, destroyed not by enemies, but by blood, by my own son. After the papers were signed, the city no longer belonged to me. The skyline that once bore my shadow erased. The streets that once echoed with my power, silent. It is a strange thing to lose everything while still breathing. You wake, you walk, you eat, but the world you built is already gone. I remember walking into my office one last time. The desk was still there. The chair was still warm. The paintings still hung on the walls. But it wasn't mine anymore. Men I had raised from nothing, men who once bowed at the sound of my voice, now avoided my eyes. Their silence spoke louder than their words. And pity is the cruelest crown a man can wear. I left quietly. No speeches, no goodbyes. Just a man stepping out his own empire. A ghost while still alive. At home, the silence grew heavier. The halls of my mansion, once filled with music and laughter, now echoed like tombs. The chandeliers still glittered, but their light only revealed emptiness. A palace without life is nothing but a prison. I would sit at the long dining table, once crowded with ministers, with friends, with voices toasting my name. Now only one plate, one glass, only me. Sometimes I thought of David, the boy who once ran through these same halls, chasing shadows, laughing in innocence. I would see his small hands gripping mine, his eyes full of trust. Now he was gone, not because death took him, but because choice took him. They say wealth is noise, engines roaring, glasses clinking, crowds cheering. But when wealth vanishes, the loudest sound left behind is silence, and silence is a heavy companion. I would walk through the garage, rows of cars polished, untouched, machines worth millions, yet all of them useless. What use are wheels when you have nowhere to go? I would pass the portraits on the walls, paintings of me, strong, confident, untouchable. But when I looked in the mirror, I saw a stranger, a man hollowed out by betrayal, a man who once stood on top of the world, now forgotten in its shadows. Night was the worst. I would lie in a bed too big for one man. The silence pressed against my chest like a weight. I closed my eyes, but instead of sleep, I saw memories. The day I held David for the first time. The day I placed his hand on his first company seal. The day I believed he was my legacy. But legacies can vanish, and empires, no matter how tall, can turn to ash in a single moment. I had lived my life surrounded by men, by power, by noise, and yet, in the end, I was left with nothing but walls. Walls that remembered, but could not speak back. I was a lion once, but a lion without a kingdom is nothing but a cage of bones. I used to believe money was everything. That with enough of it, you could buy loyalty, you could buy love, you could even buy time. But money is a trickster. It gives you the illusion of control, while quietly pulling the ground from beneath your feet. Yes, money can build towers, but towers crumble. Money can buy people's time, but never their hearts. Money can fill your hands with gold, but it cannot stop those hands from trembling when betrayal arrives. I thought giving David everything would make him grateful. I thought shielding him from pain would make him strong. I thought wealth could substitute for struggle. But comfort is a slow poison. Perhaps I should have let him fall once or twice. Perhaps I should have let him feel hunger in his bones, the way I once did. Perhaps he would have valued what I built if he had bled for it. Instead, I gave him castles without bricks in his hands. I gave him jewels without sweat on his brow. I gave him an empire without scars on his back. And a man without scars cannot understand the weight of what he holds. I learned too late that family is not guaranteed by blood. Blood gives you a name, but choices define the bond. David was my son by birth, but by his choices, he became a stranger, and I was blinded by love. I ignored the shadows in his eyes. I ignored the whispers around him. I ignored the truth because I wanted to believe my legacy was safe in his hands. But if there is one thing I know now, it is this: love without wisdom becomes weakness, and loyalty without truth becomes betrayal. So hear me. Guard your heart, even from those you love most. Do not mistake giving for raising. Do not mistake shielding for teaching. Teach them the value of struggle. Let them earn. Let them fail. Let them feel the weight of hunger, the bite of loss, the fire of ambition. Because what is given without cost is often thrown away without thought. I once believed my towers would stand forever, but towers are only stone. Names are only letters. Even wealth, no matter how vast, can vanish in a single moment. The only empire that lasts is the one you build inside the hearts of others. Love, trust, memories that cannot be sold or signed away or erased. But I failed to build that empire. I left no fortress in the heart of my son. And so, when the walls fell, I was left with nothing. Do not make my mistake. Do not confuse gifts for guidance. Do not believe that wealth is love. Love is presence. Love is discipline. Love is truth, spoken even when it hurts. And when the day comes when your body is old and your empire fades, it will not be the towers that stand beside you. It will be the hearts you tended, the bonds you forged, the scars you helped shape into strength. That is the only empire worth building. In the end, my empire did not fall to rivals or to time. It fell to the hands I once held, the blood I once trusted, the son I once called my legacy. And as the world forgets my name, I remain only as a shadow, whispering into the silence. In the end, my empire vanished, and so did I.